What's going on, guys? It's your boy Decoder, and I know this isn't something that I typically do on this channel, but this past weekend I did attend the Rochester Regional, and I felt like I did a pretty good job with the rogue deck that I chose to bring. Now, if you guys are familiar with the channel and with what I've been playing lately, you would have seen me playing a lot of Art Mage. Shoutouts to Medis the Pure. I've been enjoying Art Mage a ton as of late. I've been playing it on all the studio streams. If you guys haven't been checking them out, I've been playing right here in my new dual studio, as you can see around me. The lovely dual studio that I've been playing on with a lot of my friends and stuff over on my streams. So of course, check out the streams over at twitch.tv/DisneyCoder if you guys want to see the deck in action. But because of the not so bad place finish, I should say, I got 11th out of like 150 players. 6-2 score, 6-2 record, so 6 wins, 2 losses. Not too shabby. I felt pretty proud of myself. A lot of people have been asking about the deck profile and understanding, you know, how to play the deck. So I figured, hey, fuck it. You know, I got this nice space to do it. Let's show you guys a list, throw together a couple of combos, and basically show you guys how you guys can play the deck. But right before we get started, if you like the playmat that you see right over here, this is the Distant X Ophidian collab playmat that I put together with the help of Ophidian accessories. So if you guys are interested in picking up a lovely playmat like this or others with a similar style, we have playmats for not only modern format, but also Genesis format and a ton of different retro Yu-Gi-Oh formats. If you guys are interested in picking up the Distant Coder collab mat, you can pick them up using promo code CODER15 in order to get 15% off any of the Coder collection playmats. So if you have a Coder collection playmat in your cart, you get 15% off your entire cart. So go ahead, pick up a playmat over at Ophidian. You support me in the process, would mean a ton. But without further ado, let's get into the profile, shall we? So I played not only the Art Mage stuff, but I combined it with the K9 cards. So I know what a lot of people are going to think. Oh my God, Coder, you mixed a non-meta engine with a meta engine. Surely the meta engine carried the whole thing. I'm going to be real. This deck is super cool, specifically because it plays so differently than any other of the decks that play the K9 cards, such as, you know, the Crystron decks and stuff like that. I'm not doing any cringe Mjolnir locks or anything like that. The reason why I'm playing K9 is because it covers a lot of the Art Mage weaknesses, such as Droll and Nib. And then it also has the extra caveat that it bridges into a full Art Mage combo if you do see the K9 combo. Now, I will be showing you guys the combo after this, but first let's get into the cards specifically. The way I like to do deck profiles, I like to show all the engines one at a time. So obviously, for the Art Mage cards, I'm playing 2 copies of Medis the Pure, 2 copies of the Art Mage Power Patron, 2 copies of the Art Mage Graph Lair, and then 1 and 1 of the Finmel and the Littera. Now, the reason why I'm only on 2 of the Medius, I know that this is a little bit weird, most decks would play 3, is specifically because you only need 2 copies because you don't necessarily need to draw into it. And once you see 1 Medius, usually that's enough because it can keep coming back from the graveyard. Now, obviously, when you bring it back from the grave, it gets banished after the fact. But then when your Deactors gets destroyed, it brings it back from banished, and it's a nice little loop there. So you don't need 3 copies of the Medius because 2 is going to be plenty. You're going to see it, and once you see it, you have access to it. It's in rotation. Then I'm playing 3 of the Field Spell and 3 of the Alteration. Obviously, Alteration being 3 additional copies of the field. Realistically, in this deck, all you need to do is see the field plus any other spell or trap. So this is really the card that you will want to hard draw more than everything else. The only other one that I think is really nice to hard draw, which a lot of people are putting at 1, and I'm considering bumping him up to 3, is the Graph Lair. I think Graph Lair going second is probably one of the more powerful cards, being able to deal with the back row on top of getting you to this engine. I think Graph Lair is kind of crazy. I'm considering bumping it up to 3, especially because it's a 5. It pairs very well with the K9 cards, but I played 2 at this regional and it felt really nice. Now, I will say one thing I forgot to mention. This list isn't the exact list that I played at the regional. It's actually the list that after playing at the regional, I figure, okay, let me fix up the couple little things that I want to fix up and then give you guys the list that I'm probably going to be bringing to Niagara next weekend, because there is another regional happening this weekend, and I hope that I do pretty good at that one. Then after that, I have the 1 copy of Assault, the 1 copy of Succession, and the 1 copy of Awakening to round out the main deck cards. The reason why these are each one ofs is, again, Assault, all it really does is get you to the Medius. The protection effect for the field spell is nice, but it's not the bread and butter of like why you play this card. This card is just to get the Medius. So it just means that with an Assault, you get to bridge Graph Lair into Assault into Medius, because shockingly, Medius the Pure is not an Archmage card. He is the Fallen of Albaz of the archetype. Can't wait to get some cards that say, add a card that mentions Medius the Pure on it. But for the time being, the only way to get to this is to go Grappler into Assault into Medius, which is why we're playing the 1 copy of Assault. You do not need more than the 1. And then 1 copy of the Succession, just because the recycling part of this card is likely to be the more important one. I'm going to be real. So many times I want to just dump this to the graveyard to be able to recycle these, because, you know, these names, this one of, and 2 of, being able to recycle these with the spell is the only way to get them back. If they're in the grave and you lose your Litera in some capacity, this is the only way to get those back. And then the Awakening is one of the more important parts of the end board. The pop that you get off this is really good. Sometimes being able to get this to go into a Medius, into a Power Patron, into, like, you know, another Deactoris on your opponent's turn or something like that can mean a lot. And the fact that it branded loss to your opponent is really strong because it lets you resolve your more powerful boss monster, which we'll talk about in just a second. So for the extra deck cards for the Mage Engine, it's very small. You play 2 copies of the Deactoris and 1 copy of the Nerva, the Power Patron of Creation. Now, the reason why I'm on 2 Deactoris is because 2 comes up a lot. The amount of times where you make 1, it gets outed, and sometimes it gets outed in a way where you couldn't use the effect, or sometimes you get like Dark Ruler or whatever, and then sometimes you have the ability to summon the Power Patron with another Medius, and then you just make another Deactoris on the opponent's turn so that you still have it live, is really good. And then obviously the Nerva is good on his own, but he pairs really well with the Trap, because if you go Trap to summon like Medius into Power Patron, then you use Power Patron plus 2 other Archmages to make the Nerva on the opponent's turn. Because your opponent can't respond when you perform a fusion summon, you'll summon the Nerva. Because the Owl hits the grave, you get to trigger the Owl in order to add an Archmage spell or trap, and then at that point they can't respond, so you can then immediately go Nerva Chainlink 2 to change the effect of this, to destroy all cards your opponent controls. And this engine is really strong at controlling boards. It's actually kind of crazy just how difficult the Archmage portion of this deck is to deal with, which is why I like this deck so much. I think that these cards are just really annoying for an opponent to attempt to deal with, and for that reason I find it really cool to play. I like when boards are sticky, when you play cards that are able to control the board extremely well, and a lot of these cards, you know, have some unbelievable effects. Being able to use Grafflair as an MSD, being able to use Finmel as an additional disruption. The negate on this is permanent, by the way, so being able to go Finmel to like full board Forbidden Droplet your opponent is really, really strong. Like, these cards, they just generate a ton of advantage, and once you stick all of them to the board, good luck outing it. Next up, we have the K9 portion of the deck, and I know what you guys are thinking. Again, meta engine, but I'll explain why I'm on K9 over any of the other engines you can play with Archmage. So obviously 3 copies of Azuna, 3 copies of Jokul, 1 copy of Lantern, and 1 copy of the Lupus. Now, we are about to get into the weeds of why I'm playing K9. You guys have all seen it before, okay? It's no surprise, but K9 not only lets you get into, you know, your Ripper, into your Werewolf, but it also lets you get into a very cool rank 5 Xyz known as Infinitrack Riverstormer. And the main reason why I'm playing this engine, it's gonna sound so silly once I tell you guys, is because Riverstormer searches any Earth machine, and the Earth machine that we're searching is none other than the planet Pathfinder. Why are we searching Planet Pathfinder? Because Planet Pathfinder gets you to the Archmage Acropolis, and this allows you to full combo in Archmage. So this is the reason why we are playing the Planet Pathfinder. So to explain the whole crux of the K9 engine, we are playing this as a way to make the Ripper in order to beat stuff like Joel and Lockbird, stuff like Nibiru. So if you go Joko +5, you go into Ripper, slap the Ripper down, Ripper gets you a Lantern, and at that point, if they Droll you, you have the Ripper to beat it, because Droll is the card that absolutely obliterates the Archmage deck. But then after that, once you go Lantern, Revive Jokul, you get to go Riverstormer, get the Planet Pathfinder, normal summon it, get the field spell, and then after you get the field spell actually has a really cool effect that gives you an extra normal summon for exactly Medius the Pure. So because you get the extra normal summon for Medius the Pure, having to use your normal summon on the Riverstormer is actually completely fine. So for that reason, this engine is really, really strong and pairs extremely well with the Archmage cards. Now, obviously, the rest of the K9 engine, I'm playing 3 copies of Case, 1 copy of the Force Release. The reason why I'm on 3 copies of Case is because, again, the Archmage field spell does require that you discard spells spells and traps in order to use it. So because of that, you play extra copies of Case so that you can search them out with your Lantern to have a better discard with this. That, and you want to draw the K9 engine, like you want to see Joko +5 specifically to be able to do as much as you can with this deck. So for that reason, playing the Case for K9 is mandatory at 3 in my opinion. If you want to cut it to less, post side when I'm going second, I cut this down to 1 and I cut this card entirely. Sometimes you can keep this in depending on the matchup, but Case for K9 going first, just being able to max out on it. I like Case for K9 because, you know, if you get hand trapped on something, you can go Case, grab the Izuna. Izuna lets you go into a Ripper, go into a River Stormer, and continue from that position. Otherwise, the rest of the extra deck cards that you play in your K9 engine, obviously you're playing the K9 Jax. I say obviously, this isn't even that standard, but I really like this card. I like this card more than Valon because it removes the body. The only time I've ever found that you really want to go into the Valon is when you're playing against Yummy and you want to play around the One of Obedient Schooled. But other than that, that card doesn't super come up. So I like Jax more for that reason. And then I'm also playing the Nash Knight package. So I'm playing Nash Knight with the CXYZ Nash Knight. I'm playing the 1 C101 Silent Honor Dark. I don't play Honor Arc with it. And then I'm also playing Masquerade and the 104 Umbral Horror Masquerade. I'm going to get it out of the way. I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, Coder, if I can't get this $100 card, should I be playing this deck? And I'm going to be so real with you. I think the unfortunate part is these two cards here are so integral to the going first combo that in my opinion, if you do not have this card, it is not worth playing the Archmage K9 build. You can try it without it, but the combo that I am going to show you, really, this card is very pivotal to the main combo of Joko +5. So unfortunately, if you don't have this card, it's going to be very difficult to play this deck correctly. But I mean, feel free to give it a try, but I do like to... I'm not going to beat around the bush and pretend that you do not need the really expensive card. You really do need it. That card is extremely strong in this deck. And then to round things out, obviously I'm going to be playing a couple of staple cards. So I'm going to show you guys the staples that we're playing in the deck. I'm playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 3 copies of Ghost Bell, as well as 3 copies of Molcharmy Fuelos and a Called by the Grave in the main. The Ghost Bell, I go back and forth between wanting Bell in the main and Droll in the main. I am side decking the Droll and Logbirds, but the reason why I chose to put Bell in the main over the Drolls is specifically because I'm of the opinion a lot of people are on Draco Tail right now over the Yummy Mitsurugi deck. At the regional, I played against 1 Yummy Mitsurugi and I played against 3 Draco Tails. So for that reason, I think Bell right now, because a lot of people are pivoting over to Draco Tail, is a good call. But again, the staples that you choose to play in your deck are really up to interpretation. They're up to you, your own opinion. So the Call by the Grave, obviously, these are just like to stop Fuelos, but I'm going to be so real. Fua doesn't even destroy this deck. Fua just says, hey, do less K9 stuff. Make a Ripper and that's it. But then after that, after they fool you, it's completely fine because you just go, okay, cool. If you hard drew the field spell, you go field spell, and then you go summon Finmel, summon Graph Flare, summon Littera from hand, and then you're just like, cool, I've established essentially a whole board and you've drawn 1 card off your Fua. No problem at all whatsoever. It is a-okay. But the reason why I'm playing these, this specifically is for Droll. Droll just absolutely obliterates this deck. And Ash is actually just a good card going first and second. And the other reason is specifically because if someone is playing Perulia, or if they Fua you, you want to be able to Ash that you can still do all your K9 stuff. But even if you don't have it, Fua is not the end of the world. I just think Ash is very versatile in that reason. So that's it for the main deck non-engine. And then the non-engine from the extra deck that I'm playing, obviously I'm playing 1 copy of the SP. I'm playing 1 copy of the Typhon, which has a lot of cool uses in this deck. I'll explain in just a second. And I'm also playing a copy of the Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera is the main fusion that you're going to be making with the Archmage fusion spell, because the Succession can make anything so long as one of the materials you use is an Archmage. So the thing that's really cool, right, is that your Littera on the field, she has an effect where she'll revive an Archmage from your grave or summon 1 from hand and then return itself to the hand. So this card effectively guarantees that you'll have a monster in the hand as well as your board. So you can always go Succession, fuse off 2 dudes from board and the Littera from hand that you bounced back in order to make the Guardian Chimera, draw 1, pop 2, or if you have like a dead Fua in hand or whatever, you can use 1 from board, the Littera in hand, and another card in order to make the Guardian Chimera, draw 2, pop 1. And then, like I said, this card is the way that you recycle back your Littera, your Graph Flare, and your Finmel. And specifically, if you're using the Succession to fuse, then you don't mind using the Littera. Otherwise, you always want to keep your Littera in hand. But if you're using the Succession, then you don't even mind putting all 3 in the grave, because Succession has the effect that it can banish itself in order to shuffle all 3 of these right back into your deck. So for that reason, using this card to go into the Guardian Chimera is just really strong. And then the Typhon, the unique applications for Typhon, the fact that going into a Yummy Mitsurugi deck, if you're able to go dump a Lupus like off an Izuna, or even if you just hard draw the Lupus, right? And they're doing Yummy Mitsurugi stuff, they'll at some point turn on these cards. They'll enable these cards. And sometimes, let's say you just draw the Lupus, you can go summon Lupus from hand if they've used an effect in hand or grave, which they will. And then you can go Lupus, even if it's the only guy on your board, in order to Xyz for the Typhon. And then if you do this, you have a Typhon that can't be targeted. So the outs that Yummy typically has to a Typhon is Surprise, which targets, cannot target because of the Lupus, and the Mitsurugi portion have the Murakumo, but Murakumo can't activate because it has more than 3,000 attack. So if you're playing against them and you open Izuna or Lupus, you're able to go Izuna dump Lupus, revive the Lupus effect, and Typhon has to use your monster with the most attack, so you can just slap it on top of the Lupus. If you draw it with the Izuna, though, they have the ability to surprise bounce both of these before you can Lupus. However, if you draw just the Lupus, that's not even an option for them, and you get to slap down the Typhon, which is cool. But the other application that it has in this deck specifically is that Nerva, your big boss monster, when going second is a really powerful board breaker, but a lot of times you don't have the juice to fusion summon it. But it does have an alternate way to get special summoned, which is you can tribute any 3 monsters you control. This comes up actually a ton against Yummy because Yummy have the Cookie Way, which lets them book 2 of your monsters. You can still summon this using face downs because it tributes them. So because you're tributing them to summon this, you can still tribute face downs with different types. But the caveat is that it has to be summoned in defense. And this guy's got big attack, 3,300. So what you can do sometimes is you can summon the Nerva and then use another Archmage monster's effect in order to use the Nerva to change that effect to wipe your opponent's board when you're trying to break the board and go for game. But the problem is your Nerva is in defense. Now, usually the way that you want to take advantage of this is that if you have a Deactorus, you can use Deactorus to turn the Nerva to attack and then go for a big push. But if you don't have access to the Deactorus, the other thing that you can do is if your opponent summoned twice from the extra deck, you can then turn your Nerva into a 2,900 attack body, specifically because the Nerva will always be the monster on your board with the highest attack because he's 33 base attack. So because he's that big, you can just slap a Typhon on top and then you turn a body that couldn't attack into a 2,900 body to potentially go for game. Or even if you need to remove one last thing on the board, let's say you couldn't use the Nerva for whatever reason, you tribute 3 guys, make this, threaten that big board wipe, and then if they stop it in some capacity, you can still slap a Typhon on top, detach this, bounce a thing, and then potentially go for game with that. So that's basically the entirety of the main and extra. And then for the side, obviously the side deck is always a little bit up to your own interpretation, however you're feeling, what you think the meta is going to be at whatever tournament you're attending. But I have Drolls in here. Like I said, I go back and forth between putting the Drolls and the Bells in main and side. In Rochester, I main deck this, but after having played against a bunch of Draco Tail and stuff like that, I'm on the main deck Ghost Bell right now just to give it a try, but I constantly do go back and forth between these two. But right now, Droll is going to be my side. I'm also siding 3 copies of Lancia, and I know this is weird, right? It's like, oh my god, Coder, Malice isn't anywhere anymore. Malice is my Boogeyman deck. I can't beat that deck for the life of me, and I also am kind of afraid of the Lunalight deck, and because Lunalight can always like kind of creep up on you, these 2 cards are really strong against that, and I just want to have the extra tool to prevent them to get to, you know, multiple copies of the NecroDancer. This deck can deal with 1 Liger. Dealing with the second is oftentimes very difficult. So I am playing the Lancia just to kind of respect a lot of the rogue decks that this just happens to beat. Should it still be in here? I mean, if you want to play like thrusts over this or whatever, again, you can. This is just what I was on. I'm on 3 copies of the Dark Ruler No More because Dark Ruler No More is, you know, a powerful Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's very good into boards to break them. And then I'm playing 1 Duster, 1 Anti-Spell, 3 Solemn Warning, and a Solemn Judgment. This is just for when I'm going first. Typically what I'll do is I'll cut the Fuas and sometimes the Bells if it's into a bad matchup or whatever, and I'll side anywhere between 3 and 5 of these when I'm going first every time. If you see the Solemn Brigade, you're just winning. You're playing in a fusion heavy format with Draco Tail and stuff like that, so like Solemn Warning does a lot more to that deck than something like, you know, a Solemn Judgment would. So I think that this is a very solid side deck lineup. But in general, whatever you feel like you want to be siding, the side deck is more of a vibes-based thing, in my opinion, than anything else. So that was the deck profile. Now let's get into a couple of your cookie cutter combos so that you can see some of the crazy things that you can do with this deck. So the first combo that I'm going to show you is just a standard Archmage combo. If you draw access to Medes the Pure plus a spell or trap discard for the field spell, this is not going to get you any of the K9 stuff because unfortunately the K9 stuff is what you need to draw, which is why we're playing heavy on the case for K9 and stuff. But I will show you the base end board that you set up with just Archmage stuff. So obviously you're going to be normal summoning out the Medes the Pure. Medes the Pure has the effect to either add or summon a Power Patron monster from your deck. Here you're going to be summoning the Archmage Power Patron, which is the Owl, which has the quick effect that allows you to perform a fusion summon. So you use this effect, fuse with the Medeus and the Power Patron to go into the Archmage Deactoris, and then after that, the Archmage Power Patron will activate in the grave. When it hits the grave from hand or field, you get to use its effect to add any Archmage spell or trap from deck to hand. In this situation, obviously, you're going to be adding the Acropolis, specifically because you have Acropolis plus a spell trap to discard. So I used Call by the Grave just as an example of a card that technically does nothing. You activate the Acropolis, and if you're unfamiliar, Acropolis says that you can not once per turn discard a spell or a trap card in order to declare an Archmage monster's name. You can't declare the same one twice in the turn, but whatever Archmage monster you declare is the monster you're going to be adding from deck. So you're going to use the Acropolis, discard, and you're going to always declare Archmage Graflair first, because Graflair is the one that lets you get as much juice as you can. Here you're going to be using the Graflair, which allows it to special summon itself and set an Archmage spell from deck if you control an Archmage card. You control 2. Keep in mind, it doesn't need an Archmage monster. You could use it with just a field spell out. So it just needs an Archmage card. So you activate the effect, summon it, and then you get to set the Archmage Varnish Alteration from the deck, which is the Rhoda of the archetype. Typically, when you activate this, you're just activating the field spell, but if you already have the field spell, you also get to instead add an Archmage card from deck to hand. So you're going to use the alteration here in order to search for the Archmage Pact Awakening, the trap card. Very, very strong card. Here you're going to be using the Acropolis again. You're going to discard the Awakening, and you always want to do it in this order. You want to go Graflair, then Littera, then Finmel. So you're going to go pitch the Awakening, grab you the Littera. And the reason why you want to get the Littera is because Littera, just like Graflair, if you have an Archmage card, it can special summon itself and then add back any Archmage card from your graveyard. So Littera, basically if you pitch a spell trap to get Littera, Littera can then get you that spell trap again to pitch off the field spell again to get the Finmel, the third monster. So here you're going to go Littera, you're going to summon it, you're going to add back the Awakening. Now here you have a choice that you can make. You can either set the Awakening in order to, on your opponent's turn, activate the Awakening to summon out your Finmel and still have access to the Finmel on your end board. And then it also branded loss to your opponent for the turn. So if you use this, you can then use the Littera in order to summon back the Owl, bounce the Littera, and then later in the turn, use the Owl to fuse with itself and 2 other Archmage names, either the Graflair, the Deactoris, the Finmel, whatever one you've used. Like obviously you're going to be using this after you've used all of their effects, to let you fuse directly into Nerva, the Power Patron of Creation. And then if you make the Nerva in this situation, you'll have the Owl trigger as Chain Link 1, and then because you use the trap card, which says that your opponent can't respond to your fusion summons, you then get to just immediately use the Nerva, change the effect to wipe your opponent's board. So it's safer, but it's not as high ceiling, and I'll explain why. So if we bring this back and our end board was looking something more like this, with the Littera on the field. Like I said, you have the trap card in hand, the Finmel is still in deck, but you have a choice to make here. You can either go for that line I just showed you, or you can use the field spell, discard the Awakening to grab you the Finmel, and then in this situation, your Finmel gets to special summon itself, net you an additional draw. Keep in mind, this was a 2-card combo. It's just access to Medes the Pure plus any spell trap. So you still had 3 other cards in your hand, 4 with the draw. So here you would have 4 cards in hand total. And you still have the regular end board, and instead of using your Awakening in order to guarantee that your Nerva resolves, you instead have the trap card as an additional disruption, because in the grave you can banish it to target an Archmage you control, or return it back to your hand, and then non-targeting destroy an opponent's card. And I think that it's more useful to have this thing in the grave than to guarantee that your Nerva gets to go off, because typically having that extra point of disruption means that you can, at some point during your opponent's turn, set up a Nerva where your opponent doesn't have a quick effect to chain block the Owl in grave to not allow your Nerva to pop their entire board. So I think I value more guaranteeing one additional pop than I do guaranteeing the Nerva board wipe, just because the Nerva board wipe oftentimes can be interrupted. If they stop your Littera, if they stop the owl, you don't even get to this. I would rather have the guaranteed pop from the trap. So it's completely up to you guys what of those disruptions you value the most. But again, just off of a Metis the Pure plus any spell or trap, you get Deactorus, which is an Omni Negate for an effect on the field, Graph Flare, which is a quick effect MST, Mystical Space Typhoon, pop a back row, Littera, which can revive back the owl and bounce itself to the hand, which allows you to then go into the Nerva, and then you also have a Finmail, which is a full board wipe. But then you also have access to the Awakening Engrave to, after you've used the Graph Flare or the Finmail, you get to banish it, bounce this, pop a card they control, and then you can still use the Power Patron to fuse with this from the hand, so it's still a live material. And then obviously you have the Alteration, which lets you like negate an attack, which doesn't super matter, but it gives you a ton of follow-up because Metis the Pure lets you make another Deactorus on the opponent's turn. So, and you just have 4 other cards in hand. Just off of 2 cards, you still set up a very respectable turn 1 board. And this isn't even half of where the ceiling is because none of the K9 cards have even come into play. So let's show you guys a combo with K9 cards. So now I'm going to show you guys the most powerful 2-card combo that this deck has access to, which is Jokol plus any level 5. This can be a Graph Flare, this can be any other K9. Jokol plus 5 is absolutely insane in this deck, and I'm going to show you why. If you activate the effect of your Jokol here, revealing any other 5, I used another Jokol just to show it could be the worst possible 5 in your deck. You're going to summon both, and then you're going to directly overlay for the K9 Ripper. A lot less people are on Imperm now, and a lot of people are main decking Droll, so you have to respect the Droll and Lockbird, so unfortunately you are going to have to just go straight into the Ripper. Here you're going to go Ripper, detaching the Jokol in order to add, and here you always want to add the case for K9. You know what? Fuck it. Let's say they Droll and Logbird you, right? Your opponent goes, oh my god, I have Droll. You go, okay, no problem at all. Detach to negate, it is a-okay. Activate the case for K9, go ahead and grab yourself the K9 Lantern, and you're going to use the effect of the Lantern in the hand to target one of the Jokols that are in your grave, and you're going to be summoning both. So you summon out the Lantern, summon out the Jokol, and here you're free to use both their effects. You go Lantern, you go Jokol. So off the Jokol here, you get yourself an Izuna. Off the Lantern here, you get yourself the Quick Play spell, and you'll see why you get the Quick Play spell here in just a moment. So here, like I said, you're able to do the Crystron thing where you overlay both in order to make yourself a River Stormer. And then with River Stormer, you're able to use the effect, detach a material in order to search for an Earth Machine. And obviously the Earth Machine we're getting is the Planet Pathfinder. Now, you normal Planet Pathfinder, you can activate the effect in order to search you the Acropolis from the deck. And now look at that. Off of just the 2 K9s, you have Acropolis plus a spell or trap. Like we said, this is everything that you need in this deck, is Acropolis plus spell trap. So for that reason, this is absolutely insane. But now, because your opponent drolled you, your Izuna gets way more powerful. We're going to activate the Izuna because the opponent has activated a monster effect in the hand. Summon the Izuna, and then with the Izuna, we're going to be dumping the Lupus to the grave. And then we're going to use the Lupus in order to revive itself because it has the same activation requirement as the Izuna. And then with these two, we get to do something a little fancy schmancy. We get to get a little fancy with it. We're going to go into the Nash Knight. Now, one thing that I'll say about the difference between this deck in the TCG and in Genesis format, in Genesis format, you don't have this extra zone. Let me tell you, this extra zone, you can do a lot with this extra zone. So in this situation, you're going to go activate the field spell discarding the force release, and you're going to declare Archmage Graph Flare. Now, the reason why I summoned all of this first is specifically because the restriction on the field spell is a little weird. The restriction on the field spell says that after you've added with it, you can only summon Archmage monsters or Metis the Pure from anywhere except the extra deck. So you're still free to summon whatever you want from your extra deck. You don't necessarily have to summon Archmages, which is really good because now at this point, we're going to activate the Nash Knight, detaching 2, and Nash Knight doesn't have to attach anything from the board. You can just attach 1 from your extra deck. So we're going to be attaching the C104 Masquerade, and then we're going to be doing the standard play that they were doing in VS, which is where you go the CXC's Nash Knight, detach a material, and then you slap the C104 Umbral Horror Masquerade on top and use the Masquerade to destroy your own Case for K9. Case for K9 will trigger here in order to reset the force release from the graveyard. So this is why I say that this card is very integral to this combo. Having access to the Umbral Horror Masquerade guarantees that you have your force release pop on top of having an additional monster negate. And I feel as though the price tag warrants 2 additional points of interaction. It's just that important. But now, again, keep in mind, this was a 2-card combo. So you have Graph Lair, 3 other cards in your hand. Here you go, Graph Lair, summon the Graph Lair, and with Graph Lair, you're not going to be setting your alteration. You could set alteration if you value the attack negate. Actually, we'll just do this just to showcase it. Why not? You go alteration. Alteration is going to be able to add you the assault. Again, you don't have to go through the alteration. This just puts it in the grave to have an attack negate if they were to attack one of your Archmages. So like, sure. I'm realizing I fucked up. Okay, hold up. Let me clarify this again. When you use your Nash Knight, you're actually supposed to attach a River Stormer to it so that you have more space. You don't have to attach, but you're supposed to attach a River Stormer so that you have space. My bad. Apologies. When you use the Nash Knight and you detach to equip the 104, you also want to attach a River Stormer to make more space. So it was just a little bit of a fuck up on my part, but that's okay. So you use the alteration to grab the assault. You activate assault, which gets you Metis the Pure. And despite the fact that you've already normal summoned, because you have the field, you get an additional normal summon for Metis the Pure. So you can normal Metis, activate the Metis effect in order to search or special summon the Owl from your deck. So here you're going to summon out the Power Patron. You use the Power Patron to fuse with the Metis the Pure to go into your Deactorus. And then on the summon of your Deactorus, you'll be able to use your Power Patron because they hit the grave. Power Patron gets to add you any Archmage spell or trap that isn't already in your grave. In this situation, you want to be grabbing Awakening. You're going to go Field Spell again, discarding the Awakening to call Archmage Littera. So call forth the Archmage Littera. And then once you add the Archmage Littera, again, you get to just summon it. Add back the Awakening from grave, then you go Field Spell, discard the Awakening again, and I still stand by that you should be discarding the Awakening rather than holding it for your end board. And then you're going to get the Finmel. So again, at this point, this is still a 2-card combo. You have 3 other cards in hand on top of your Finmel. You get to go Finmel, summon, and draw an additional card. So in this situation, you will have 4 cards in your hand here on top of this being your end board. So the amount of disruption pieces you have, again, 4 cards in hand. Could be hand traps, could be extenders, could be follow-up, all that good stuff. But the interactions that this sets up, and this was through Droll and Lockbird, by the way. Them having the Droll actually made your combo better. You just don't have the Ripper negate anymore, which is completely fine. So when you're passing to your opponent here, you have the Deactorus, which is an Omni negate for a card or effect on the field. You have the Finmel, which can full board Forbidden Droplet your opponent. You have the Graph Lair, which is an MST. You have the Littera, which, keep in mind, can summon an Archmage back from hand or grave and then bounce itself. You need to have a space on the board to do that, which is why you want to put the trap in grave. Because typically the order of how you're going to be doing things, you're going to Deactorus negate, you're going to Finmel negate, you're going to banish your Awakening, you're going to bounce like your Finmel that's already activated or whatever, and now you have a zone to use your Littera, bring back the Power Patron and bounce this back to your hand. You also have the Force Release, which keep in mind you can't activate if you have the Owl, so you do need to make sure that you use the Force Release before you use Littera to bring back the Owl. But provided you haven't done this yet, you do have the Force Release to summon out the Werewolf, pop one of your opponent's cards, and then on top of that, you get to Werewolf if they activate an effect in order to rip their hand. Or if you value having the extra pop, you can instead make the Jax instead of the Werewolf in order to Force Release pop like a back row, pop another card, Jax pop another card on summon as well. And then afterwards, you get to use the Littera, summon back the Owl, bounce the Littera back. Keep in mind, you still also have a monster effect negate on the board with the Umbral Horror Masquerade, which also rips a card, also has their life points. This card is so fucking custom. Absolutely insane. But then after that, if your opponent somehow plays through all of that, you go Power Patron, fuse with itself, fuse with the Graph Lair, fuse with the Finmel, make the Nerva, and then if they somehow played through all of that, you summon out the Nerva, you go I activate the effect of the Owl. If they don't have a response, chain Nerva, wipe your opponent's entire board through Droll and Lockbird. And this was all off of Jokul plus any level 5. This is the bread and butter combo that you're going to be doing when you're going first. Again, this can be Jax or it can be Werewolf, whatever you prefer. But this is basically the staple combo that you need to know when you're playing the K9 Archmage deck. And I genuinely believe that this is an FTK board. Damn near no decks are able to play through it. And I know what you're thinking, Coder. What if your opponent like Dark Rulers you or something like that? You know what I mean? Like let's reset what the board looked like. So what if you get Dark Rulered here? Realistically speaking, if you get Dark Rulered, you still have 4 other cards in hand. There might be hand traps in there, okay? You are main decking Bell or Droll, and Ash Blossom, so there's a very high possibility that one of those is in your hand. But if they Dark Ruler you, you have access to the Awakening, banish the Awakening to bounce one of these to pop one of your opponent's cards. You have access to a Forced Release pop and a potential second pop with Jax or a Hand Rip with the Werewolf. And if you somehow drew into either the Assault already, or the Field Spell already, or the Trap card already, then with your Graph Flare or your Power Patron, you are getting the Fusion Spell. And then in this position, you can also use the Fusion Spell to make a Guardian Chimera. So you would have these 4 other cards to potentially draw one of these cards that we searched in the combo. And if you draw any of those cards that we've searched in the combo, any of the spell traps, then you just add Succession, and then you have access to a Guardian Chimera on your opponent's turn. Or if you want, you can even do the Nerva play. Because the thing with a Dark Ruler No More is that it doesn't prevent you from still activating your card effects. So you could always, you know, use the Succession to fuse Graph Flare, Finmel, Deactoris into a Nerva, and then you can still legally activate the Littera on field. And so if you go Littera on field and they don't have a response to it, you can still go Nerva wipe the board. So you're still looking at 3 to 4 points of interaction, even if you get Dark Ruler No More. So that's why cards like Dark Ruler don't even like hard beat this deck. The only cards that really do, I'm going to be so real, the only cards that really do kind of hard cook this deck is a Droll and Lockbird when you don't directly open Jokul. Jokul is the way that you play through it by making the Ripper early. If you don't have access to Jokul, obviously you're going to get Drolled and it's going to suck and you're going to have to make do with whatever you drew. That's like the one weakness the deck has. Realistically, every deck has to have a weakness. So that's the one weakness that the deck has. But in general, I think that this deck and the end board that it's able to produce are absolutely insane. And that's why I'm really, really liking playing this deck, because I genuinely believe that this deck has chops and a lot of people do not have it on their radar at all. And I really think a lot of people should wake up and smell the flowers, smell the roses, be like, yeah, this Archmage deck is kind of crazy. It's kind of insane, kind of nuts. So anyways, guys, that was it for the deck profile / combo tutorial / I want to yap about my favorite deck segment here on YouTube. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys had a good time. If you guys want to see this deck in action, make sure you guys check out the streams, twitch.tv/DistinCoder. I would absolutely love to have you guys there. I do TCG streams every week. I did one last weekend to prepare for the regionals. I do a lot of Genesis gaming over here on the stream as well. Heck, the video that just went up on the channel earlier this week, you guys got to see a lot of really cool gameplay happening right here in the studio. This is my baby. I'm really proud of the quality of the studio and everything, and I aim to bring you guys the utmost best TCG quality content that I can produce. It would mean a lot if you guys stopped by the stream and came and check it out. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. I hope you guys give the deck a try, and let me know in the comment section below, one, if you guys think that this deck has legs and can potentially compete in the current format. I certainly believe that it can, but I would love to hear your thoughts about it. And 2, if you guys would like to see a deck profile of Archmage for Genesis format, let me know if you guys want to see that, because if you do, it'll be my pleasure to create that kind of content for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!